Okay, this morning, what I'd like to do is begin by asking you a couple of questions. And the first question is, what do you think of when you think about what a king is? And the second question I'd like to ask is, what do you think of when you think of what a king needs around him? Because obviously, a king wants to make people know that he is a king. So it's very important that the things that he has around him declare that he is a king. So I was thinking about this. What would a king need around him to show that he's a king? So your list, as well as my list, might look a little bit like this. The first thing on the list, always very important for a king, is a crown. Can you see my crown? Obviously, it says princess, but it's a crown. Use your imaginations. Okay, so the first thing a king might need is a beautiful crown. The second thing a king might need is a throne. Here's my throne, multicolored. The third thing a king would need is some form of expensive transport so that he can drive or go wherever he wants to go. So that could be a really expensive horse, or it could be, like more modern days, a really beautiful car. Okay. Lastly, and I know this is a bit more celebrity, but I'm going to put it out there anyway because it's important for my story. A king might need a red carpet to walk on. Again, use your imaginations. Okay, right. Everything that a king has is to show you that they are a king, that they are the most important person in the whole country, that they are the richest and that they are the most powerful. But the king that we are going to look at today presents himself very, very differently. And to introduce that king to us, I'm going to read a passage from Matthew 21, verses 1 to 11. This passage is titled The Triumphal Entry. As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage on the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and at once you will find a donkey tied there, with her colt by her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, tell him that the Lord needs them, and he will send them right away." This took place to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet. "Say to the daughter of Zion, see your king comes to you, gentle and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey." The disciples went and did as Jesus had instructed them. They bought the donkey and the colt, placed their cloaks on them, and Jesus sat on them. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of him and those that followed shouted, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest!" When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred and asked, "Who is this?" The crowds answered, "This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee." Okay, and just because I like to have visual aids, I would like to pass on to a clip just to show you that story visually, okay? Okay, so let's be really, really clear. One of the lessons of this passage is that Jesus is the king. In verse 5, he's actually named as the king. However, straight away, we can see that this king is different to any other king that we know. This king presents himself in an extraordinary way. Let's go back to our initial list, okay? So the first thing that we said a king needs is a crown. You can tell by my props that I've got royalty in my blood, right? Okay. In this passage, King Jesus wears no crown at all. So we can't tell that he's a king from the fact that he has no crown. In fact, The only crown that Jesus is most famous for wearing is the highly undesirable crown of thorns, a crown that draws blood. This is not the type of crown we would usually associate with a king. Number 2, we said on our list that a king needs a throne. We think of a throne as the place where a king sits all day and governs his country. It's usually big and beautiful, bejeweled, probably gold. And it's usually seated in a big palace or a big castle, which is again beautiful, expensive, okay? But in this passage, Jesus the King has no throne. In fact, the Bible describes Jesus as actually having no place to rest his head, no home, essentially. And that, again, is not what we expect of a king that wanders from place to place and has no resting place. Number 3, we said that we might associate a king with having an expensive form of transport. This is one of my favourite parts of the passage, okay? In this passage, Jesus has no expensive Barbie car. He has simply a humble donkey. This is as close as I could find to a donkey in my house, okay? He simply has a humble donkey. But this is a very special part of the passage. Notice in verse 2, it says, go to the village, this is Jesus, you will find a donkey tied there. Excuse me? Did this man predict where a donkey would be? The precise location and the precise time without even being there himself? Verse 3 goes on to say, if anyone says anything to you, tell him that the Lord needs them and he will send them right away. Excuse me once again. Even without being there in person, Jesus has the power to command those men and they will do as he instructs them. And this is all without a crown and all without a throne and all without transport. Finally, we talked about a red carpet. On his donkey, King Jesus entered Jerusalem on a carpet of cloaks and cut branches from a tree. These people were so surprised that this man, this king, would be there, that they had only what they had to hand to pave his way for him, their cloaks and their tree branches. They came to worship him just as they were. In fact, let's go a little bit further than that. It says in the Bible that even if all men were silent, the very stones of the earth would cry out and declare he is the king. The earth itself would declare his kingship. Again, it says, the heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim. So the very earth and the very sky all testify to his kingship. And that's the key to the passage. The reason why Jesus doesn't need a fancy golden crown or pink, or a big throne, or fancy transport, or a red carpet, is because the earth and the heavens declare him as king anyway. He literally needs no man-made fanciness to do that for him. The earth and the heavens will do it. In every way, Jesus' kingship is not what we expected. His birth in a stable with humble parents, his ministry without a home, his death on a cross. Jesus, God, cannot be defined by us. His kingship will not be defined by us. So, just as the people of Jerusalem had only what they had to hand to worship him, I do hope some of you have brought today a little collection of things to hand to show that we too recognise Jesus' kingship, his power and his authority, and let's join together and sing with the heavens and the earth. Hosanna.